business is your business. It's all up in my lady business with me, Mary Nisi. Welcome to All Up in My Lady Business for today. It's a Solamente edition where it's just going to be me today. I had been putting out a call for people to send in questions that they might want to ask me, a Q&A sort of situation. And I got some really interesting questions and some questions that I get a lot that I think it is, kind of fun to address some of the popular questions. And I am excited to kind of do this. I hope it doesn't come off as self-indulgent and egotistical to think anybody cares about what I have to say about anything. But, it does seem like you guys have some questions. And so first one I've got in front of me is, who or what influenced your taste in music the most growing up? So that one has been explored on, if you do find I have a hero video I made of like my bio in 2 minutes. It's a video. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. And in that, I kind of talk about him a little bit, but part of it is I'm the fifth of six kids, and my older brothers and sisters were all deeply cool, at least as far as I was concerned, and I still believe this. But they had a really good taste in music. They weren't listening to the '80s schlock. They were really into the B-52s and the Smiths and that kind of, new wavy kind of stuff. And I remember my little sister and I, Robin, we would make up, I remember specifically making up like the song Whammy by the B-52s, making up a dance routine to that and like forcing my family to come and watch Robin and I like jump off the hearth of our fireplace in unison to like Anna and doing like the swim to like, because that's, what B-52s kind of inspires is sort of 50s-esque dancing. But my brother's best friend is this man, Mike Burke, who is still an awesome guy. I have like 4 different text strings going with him and different people that we talk about different things with. But he was just the coolest, and he and to this day, the best taste in music. And when he was in high school, he was in high school and I was in, grade school, junior high. He was like an honorary brother in my family. He was like always at our house. And, my house was kind of like Grand Central Station as it is. Like it was the kind of place where everybody kind of came to. And one year for Christmas, he made us these tapes that are these mixtapes that he made for each member of my family. There was the Mary tape, the Nancy tape, the Bob tape. Like he made one for each of us. And he had a mixer so he could talk in between the songs. And so they were these customized cassettes that said like, "Hey, Mary, it's Radio JMB," because his name was John Michael Burke. And he would talk in between the songs and like give little tips about the music. And it was like radio. And I think that was sort of the first like where I got in my head that this could be a thing. I didn't know that you could, first of all, just being able to have the technology to pull off like what a radio show sounds like in 1986 or 5, whenever it was happening. And he would put crazy music next to each other. He would play like, the Angry Samoans and, up against Frank Sinatra, which is like kind of how I DJ now. Like I don't know I haven't really heard other DJs do that kind of stuff, or I hadn't, at least at that point. And there aren't a ton of DJs doing radio like that unless you're listening to Chirp Radio, the radio station that I literally started with other people. Like I had to make the thing that in order to have the place to do it. But he would make these tapes and he continued to make them. I probably have 5 or 6 of them that were made over the next 10 or so years. But I think about that, like when you were 16 years old, were you making customized mixtapes for your best friend's little sister and her mom? And that nobody did that. He's a really special dude. On that first one, it had like the Velvet Underground, which became a hugely influential band for me. Like I was so into the Velvet Underground when I was like, what? It's like, one of those things where I don't know how good it is for a 13-year-old or I got that tape when I was 10 or 11. So a 10 or 11 getting a tape that has a Velvet Underground on them that then becomes pretty influential. Like I think some people could have heard the Velvet Underground at 10 and been like, this is weird noise. And I'm like, what's heroin? That was so Mike Burke very much had a lot of influence over that. But then it also made me feel like that mainstream music was lame and dumb and stupid. Like there was still pop music I love. Like Madonna was always very actually one of the things that really influenced my taste in music was MTV. MTV was the only thing we watched in our house. I would come home from school and I would turn on MTV and I would watch MTV for hours just watching music videos, and it was I think that had a lot to do with it because then there was, like, a show that was called 120 Minutes, that was uh on MTV that was on late on Sunday nights that played, like Susie and the Banshees, The Career of the Smiths. It would play Dave Kendall was the host of Dave Kendall, 120 Minutes, and he would play the Sugar Cubes and, I mean, just all of the stuff. So I there were places for me to find the music, and then when I got old enough to be able to, like, walk down to the record store that was, like, at the bottom of the hill from our house, Homer's Records and Tapes in Omaha, Nebraska, still exists. I would go down there on Tuesdays because Tuesdays were the days that records came out, and it was that way up until probably the last 15 or so years, but records always used to come out on Tuesdays. And I would go down there and I would poke around all the new stuff, and there was a guy that worked there, his name was Dane. He was a little bit older than me, and a little bit older than me. He was like but we were at my high school at the same time. We went to the same school. He also went to Burke. And, he would slip me stuff and, would be like, "Have you heard of this band Toad the Wet Sprocket?" And, I was like the Toad the Wet Sprocket was, like, one of my favorite bands when I was in high school until Fear, their 3rd album, which had, like, Walk on the Ocean on it, and, the second that I saw that video come on MTV, I remember bursting into tears and being so bummed because it was actually I take that back. I saw the video in 120 Minutes, and then a couple months later, they started playing it during the regular time, and I remember crying. My mom was in the room. My mom's like, "Why are you crying? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Tone the Wet Sprocket is being played during regular time, and they're not gonna be my band anymore." Like, what? Like I'm the only one who got to like Toad the Wet Sprocket, and then to punish them for that, I stopped liking them after that record. But yeah, so you had to work harder back in the day to to find music, and a lot of it was predicated on magazines like Spin magazine and Sassy had really good record reviews, but Spin magazine was also kind of my bible, and alternative press. AP, they would get AP at Homer's, and I would buy it. And also Mojo was also a magazine I was buying a lot when I was in high school. So I had to like kind of dig deep to find it. And then, once you start being the person that likes that music, you start just attracting the people that like it. And then as all like my friends, we were all into that stuff and went to millions of shows. I went to every single show that came to Omaha, Nebraska, whether I was into them or not. And so what was great about that was like, I'm like, I guess I'll go see the Cramps because they're here. And it's like, oh wow, that's why that band is not what I think they'd sound like being called the Cramps. And like, I don't know. It was a really great way. I was just always curious. I always knew there was something better out there. And I also, I think being the fifth of six kids, I think um, I was trying really hard to stand out, I think, of that crew, and I've always kind of gone for, like, the weird thing, and I also became kind of an insufferable music snob. Man, it got even worse when I started getting into, like, actual indie rock, like, this new stuff that was being made 'cause I was into a lot of stuff that was old. I wasn't listening to a lot of new stuff. I liked old stuff, like, the new stuff's stupid. I like the old stuff. So I mean, as far as my youth goes, I'll put that through high school, was where I was getting a lot of that's where I was kind of being that person. And although I will say, like, all my friends, we were, like, decidedly, like, alternative or, whatever, college rock, but my friends also kind of had, like, this, like, Grateful Dead, Big Head Todd and the Monsters thing that I could never get behind. Although, I will say, I was in the parking lot at the last Grateful Dead concert doing whippets. I didn't make it inside. A lot of people were wanting miracles. A lot of people were selling very delicious grilled cheese sandwiches, and I did whippets in the parking lot, and that is the extent to which my jam band situation. I never did whippets again. That's a lie. I did them a little bit more, but I was 19. I didn't know any better. Okay, so I think that answers that. And if you guys are desperate for more information about how I got my taste in music, comment, send in a question. I'll let you know any more about my music taste. I guess the next question is how the heck do you balance being a mom, running a company, doing a podcast, and keeping bees? Like, seriously, how? Well, I barely do. If you listen to the very first episode of this season, I really feel like I dropped the ball on everything. And I am, getting it all back in theory. But I think the way that I balance it, I guess balance, I don't even like that word. Balancing is not a thing that anybody's ever asked. Men are never asked, how do you manage being a dad and a guy that works? Like, only women get that question. And that's no fault to the person who asked the question because we do get asked that question all the time because, we're only expected to have babies, and now that we do more things, it's like, how do you do it? But, uh I think that one of the things that fuels me, on the doing of so much stuff is it's kind of like it's like Alexander Hamilton, like, "Why do you write like you're running out of time?" Like, I just wanna do everything, and I have FOMO for everything, and if I'm interested in it, I wanna just do it, and when I was younger, I mean, even, like, younger while still having a baby, my brain I could do more things, like, especially before I had Sebastian, I could do everything. I don't know how I thought I didn't have time for anything at all before that, because all I had was time and I didn't know it. But I used to be better at segmenting my time and being able to do everything. It's just harder now. And I don't know if that's because my brain prioritizes things differently, but it does weigh on me when I can't do things as good as I used to, because I'm like, "Is this because I'm getting old? I don't wanna get old. Do I really need to be doing this much stuff?" And I kind of, you know, go back and forth on what I really should be doing with my time. In terms of the things that were asked here, being a mom, I can't stop being a mom. Like, and that is something that is always present in my head in some capacity. Like, in some way, I'm always kinda thinking about Sebastian. It's like when he goes out of town, like, when he'll go to, like, his grandparents' house for, like, a week, it's like my brain goes shunk. Like, it's like I always have this little worry in the back of my head where it's like, "Okay, what time's he getting home? Do I have to make him a meal? Did I have to put something in a bag? Did I remember his thing?" I mean, I always have, like, a little, like, ways you're fucking up as a mom report that's kind of going on in the back of my head. And when he goes out of town, it's like that's the only real relief I have when he leaves town, is just not having to worry about him anymore. But that the mom thing is always there. And maybe that's probably part of the reason why I can't do things the way I used to, is because being a mom, as the older the kid gets, the more complex their needs are. And so I can't there are those needs are kind of turned, like, both up and down at the same time. Like, he doesn't need me as nearly as much as he used to. Like, in the morning, he leaves the house at 7:30 on his bike and goes to school, and then he just comes home after school and is alone for a little bit until one of us gets home. Which I can't believe that's I'm at a point in my life where that just happens, and, like, he'll just leave the house, there'll be, like, there's always, like, 5 kids at my house, and they'll, like, leave, and they'll be like, "Oh, we're gonna go up to Central Street and get ice cream and pizza," and it's like and it's, like, amazing, it's great from that perspective, but now I'm worried about, like, is he getting hit by a car? Is he getting kidnapped? Is he but, it's like you have to let your kids go, or else they'll never learn how to be humans in the world. Running the company it's a journey, that's for sure. And I'm able to do all this because I've got Melissa, who is an amazing help, and I've got Rennie, who does the additional services. We just promoted one of my DJs, Chris, to being head DJ. So I've got, like, a really amazing team that is keeping Toast and Jam afloat. Now that I got it back afloat. Like, it was the last 5 years have been pretty difficult, but it's back finally running the way that I want it to be running. And I also learned how to delegate, and I've been able to separate my ego from it, because which I think is a very hard thing for entrepreneurs to do, to, like, allow somebody else to speak on your behalf or do things. And my whole thing was that a lot of the times people that I'd hired, not everybody, but sometimes I had people that I hired that just never did anything the way I wanted it done. That's not necessarily to say they did it wrong, but they weren't doing it the way I wanted them to do it. And I really, really tore me up and I really struggled with, like, being okay with things getting done, not the way I wanted to. The way that I wanted to is always a little bit better. I always kind of, if I'm gonna do something, I wanna do it, and that's actually part of the problem as well with all of this balance concept, is that I wanna kill it every time, and I don't wanna rest on laurels or do the same thing over again. And I think part of that is, gendered bullshit where, you know, I'm constantly kind of being interrogated about, you know, my role as a woman in business, a woman as a DJ, a woman, you know, entrepreneur, even doing a podcast. I mean, all of these things are things that women don't typically do. And it's a lot of, like, as a woman, how does this work out for you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to have people just believe you or trust the first thing that comes out of your mouth. I don't know what that's like. I have to come to every argument with I have to come to every situation with, like, 5 different reasons why I should be allowed to do it, because someone's gonna push back, and it's really fucking annoying. I can't tell if I'm getting really off topic here, um, but the balance is all compartmentalized, really. That honestly, that's what it is. I think when I'm a mom, I'm trying to be a mom, and when I'm running the company, I'm trying to run the company. And like when I'm doing this podcast, I'm like only thinking about it's like, and when I'm doing the thing, I'm doing the thing, which actually is a relatively new situation because before, when I stopped doing the podcast and when I took that break and everything, it was like when I would be doing the podcast, I'd be feeling like I should be working on work. When I was working on work, I was thinking about I should be, doing other work things that I was physically unable to do. And I was always kind of shitting on myself because I felt like I was doing everything shittily and nothing great. And what it really means is just kind of getting everything in order so that you can actually like enjoy it while you're there. And I'm really glad back doing this podcast. I want to give a shout out to Shiraz, my producer, who really like pushed me to like do this again. And I'm really glad that I had somebody holding my hand or, you know, metaphorically to get me here. So I'm just glad to be back here doing it. As far as the beekeeping goes, that's a real seasonal hobby. I'm really only actively beekeeping from, like, March until October. I guess it's most of the year. That's once a week I'm going into the hives and, making sure that the queen's doing good things, and this year I had some drams. I always have drams. I always have drama with my queens, like, and I had a it just was a there was it was hard this year, but I wound up processing honey over the weekend, and I processed 106 pounds of honey over the weekend. So I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with that. I gotta jar it up, and anybody want any honey? Send me an email. Say something in the comments. I've got a lot of honey. We're gonna move on to the next question now. What is the hardest business lesson you've had to learn the hard way? I mean, I guess I've had to learn all of my business lessons were learned the hard way. At least I mean, I guess there's some things that I'm sure are easier for me than they are for other people. I guess no one really wins. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to how everything goes. But I think the hardest business lesson that I've had to learn the hard way is that there's no easy way. And, like, by that, I mean, there's all these online courses. I made one myself, where it's always like, "What are these hacks to make it easier for you to get to your six-figure salary?" or whatever. Like, unless you have unless like, you have to do it all you kinda have to do it all yourself. And that's it and when bad things happen, like, I guess one of the hardest things I've had to learn is to stop taking it personally. Like, when something bad would happen to me, I'm like, "Why is this happening to me?" And, I don't see anybody else dealing with this shit, and I, tend to, victimize myself and which is, like, boring. Like, no one wants to hear anybody else victimizing themselves. But when a bad thing happens, you've got 2 choices. You can either deal with it or not deal with it. And that means you're either keeping a festering problem in your company or you're quitting. And either way, they're both the same thing. I mean, if you leave a festering problem in your company, it doesn't go away. And so I have learned, actually, this is probably it, is that when something isn't working, oh, this is what it is I am really bad at cutting my losses and realizing like I get very pot committed on things. And so like if, I spend all this time trying to figure out how to do something and even though I'm doing it in the dumb jankiest way, I've already invested some money in this. I've already invested my time. And so then I feel like, I have to keep doing it even if it's not really working. But the really hard way I learned that is with people. So it's like keeping people around a lot longer than they should be. And, they say you should hire slow and fire fast, and I am the other way around. Not everybody that I hire is gonna be a right fit for the company. And that's something that, like, when I hire someone, I feel this like, "Oh, well, I let 'em in, so I probably should give them a chance. I don't want them to think that they're bad at this." And it's like other people's needs are more important than mine or whatever. And I don't say that like in a altruistic, like, I just worry about everyone else's feelings first. It's more like a deep-seated need to be liked, and it sucks, and I don't want people to dislike me. It is a terrible trait of mine, and so it's letting people not like me. That's a hard one that I've had to learn to live with, because like, not everyone's gonna like you, and that's something that, like, I've always been like, "That's not true. You can get everyone to like you if you just, you know, whittle yourself down to the smallest piece that they can possibly, digest, then, I'll make your dinners, I'll be doing whatever. That's not really what I mean, but is letting people dislike you, letting people go when they should be when it's clearly not working, realizing that there's no shortcuts. And if you take a shortcut, it's gonna get evened out. Like I've really come to believe in karma. Not necessarily like that there is a karmic wheel that's moving, but I do think that there is balance. Like every time something amazing happens to me, something kind of shitty happens. And it's whether it's like how much and I think that's always happening, but I think it just becomes more obvious when a great thing happens and then you've got like a low low. And so it's when something bad happens, you can undo it, you can even it out, but you can't that's not where I'm going with that. There's no shortcuts. And so if you try to take a shortcut on one side, you're gonna get fucked on the other side somehow. Like so you might as well just do it the hard way and, like, actually solve the problem, because they don't go away. They will always be there until you solve the problem. That's a hard and also don't do everything yourself. That's the other thing, is always have other people that can do, like, the stuff you truly don't know, like, have a lawyer, don't incorporate yourself, like, have a bookkeeper, like, if there's things that you're not good at that can seriously fuck you, meaning money and the law, don't don't try to do that yourself. Do not ChatGPT any of this. Anybody who uses AI for legal stuff, I worry. But yeah, so those are some hard lessons. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones I'm giving you right now. The next one is if you could ban one wedding trend forever, what would it be? It's interesting because I've either started liking the things that are trends that, like there's 2 ways to look at trends. One is, like, dumb trends, like, doing, Smirnoff Ice challenges where there was a period if I don't even remember what icing was, but it was happening a lot. It was like, if a Smirnoff Ice appeared, you had to chug it or something. I don't but that happened at, like, 15 of my weddings. Like, that kinda stuff where it's like, TikTok trends that get kind of pulled in because it's gonna, like, seriously date your wedding, which might be fun when you're watching the video later on. But one thing I have learned is that, most of the trends or the stuff that we associate with weddings, like, it's there to in many ways it exists, there's a purpose for it that is like a universal purpose to it that helps keep the wedding structured, and so you need some of those there. So, like introductions, like you need kind of these energy bursts at the top of each movement. So like if you got like your ceremony, you got your cocktail hour, you got dinner, you got dancing. And so you need something that like this is the ceremony. Ceremony's over when they walk down the aisle. Cocktail hour, they go to a room, they drink cocktails, and they have to move to another room to come back for dinner. And that's where they get their place card and they kind of there's these energy shifts that kind of change give people something to do. Like when people are like, I just want to have a party. I don't want to have first dance. I don't want to have introductions. Like this is just a party. It's like, then don't hire me. Just put an iPad on because like you need you need structure for these things. Your aunt flew in from Toledo. You can let her see you have a first dance. Like if it's just a party, it's a big blob, nobody will remember it. It'll just be it's not good. So you need to have these things that kind of structure the day and give people something to do and, make memories. There's no memories if there's nothing happening other than just people coming into a room and not necessarily talking to everybody there or whatever. So like, in terms of, like, introductions or cake cutting or, you know, toasts or first dances and things like that, like, I think those things are, like, benign things that if and we're also doing them in the way that I wanna do them. Like, when I started doing this, I'd only been to, like, maybe 1 or 2 weddings in my life before I started doing this job. And so I didn't have a whole lot of existing information on how these were supposed to go. And then the guy I was working for initially was the coolest guy in the universe. And he showed me that you don't have to compromise on like who you are in these situations. I mean, sometimes I'll have to do things I don't really wanna do, but, like, whatever. Like, I didn't like, when we do introductions, it's not like we're putting on the Bulls' greatest hits or the Bulls theme song and then, "All right, up next is" we're doing them in a classy, joyful way that is just gonna get the point across. Like, there's some DJs out there that are very into, like, hamming it up on the microphone and getting out there and, dancing with the couples, and that's just not what we do. And because we don't do that, people don't we attract people that don't want that. So I've managed to actually educate our client base to like, "Hey, we don't want these things. These things in our estimation create a different type of an event that we don't really want to do, and we can't flip a switch and do it." It's not like, "Oh, okay, I guess they want line dances. I guess I'm gonna go out there and teach them how to do the cha-cha slide." Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't even know how to pretend to do that. And I've been doing this now for almost 20 years, and it's been very successful. So I think that the wedding trends that we still do, they're all fine. I feel pretty good. The things I don't like are bouquet and garter toss. I hate those. I think those are disgusting, and they very rarely happen, especially the garter toss. I haven't done a garter toss in wow, 10 years, 15 years, I haven't done a garter toss. That doesn't really happen. Bouquet toss does happen, and there's actually kind of a movement now where the bouquet toss is actually like it's like anybody can come out, like, it's not like, it's less about because the concept of the bouquet toss was, the bride throws it, and the person that catches it will be the next person to get married, which is what kind of magical thinking is that? Um It's now it's either if they do a bouquet toss, it's kind of like to everybody, like anybody who wants to come out, or you can do conversely an anniversary dance, which where you bring out all the couples, and then, if you've been married less than a day, leave the dance floor, and the bride and groom leave, or the groom and the bride, the couple leaves. And then it's like you've been married less than, 1 year, 2 year, and you kind of, you know, whittle it down to the couple that's been married the longest. You give them the bouquet, you ask them if you can give them a piece of advice, and then whatever. That's like a way to kind of get rid of the bouquet if that's something you wanna do. But I do think it's really weird to be like, single people, show yourselves." And it's like, you know, the 3 friends that aren't married or uncoupled and, like, your divorced aunt and, like, a 5-year-old, and it's like, n no, it's fun, and it's not necessary, and I don't like that. I also don't like it, I don't like surprises. I don't like people try to do surprises at weddings unless it's a couple doing it. Don't like surprises as I don't know, surprises are a bad idea, and maybe I'll talk about that later, but that is surprises. Surprises, bouquet, and garter. Those are the trends I don't like, but I think you also just need to understand a lot of these things all exist. They make the day flow in many ways better, and so if you're not going to do that trend, we gotta figure something else out that kinda gets that energy that you need for that moment, and then or you just have somebody do it like me that isn't gonna do it in a dumb, cheesy way. Alrighty. The next question, well, this is kinda deep. How do you define success now compared to when you were younger? Okay, so how do I define success? You know, I guess when I was younger, and by younger, let's like when I started the business, which was I was 30, I think, ish. I was 29. I was 29 when I started Toast and Jam. And no, I was 30. I was 30. So when I started the company, well, when I started DJing weddings, it was the first time in my life where I actually felt like I was doing what I should be doing. Like, I understood callings at that point, and that I had found the thing that I should be doing, and it felt right. It worked right away, and it just kept working. I think part of it is because I did it all myself. Like, I mean, not like it myself, like I'm a self-made person. Like, I just didn't I wouldn't take money from anyone, not that anyone was offering, but I wasn't gonna, like, take out a loan to figure this out. Like, if I couldn't afford it, I wasn't gonna do it, and I was raised without money, and, my whole 20s were spent waiting tables and DJing, so I was never really rolling around in money, but I also lived a very cheap life, so, like, it was really easy for me to, like, only live on a little bit of money because I lived in an apartment where I had 2 other roommates, and it was the same apartment I'd been in for almost 10 years. Actually, that's right, actually started Toast and Jam and then moved out of my apartment into my first condo, and so that was like I'm a big girl now. I started a business, bought a condo, moved out of my stopped having roommates at the age of 30, normal stuff that most people are dealing with in their 20s, but it just worked, and it worked because I had money. Like, I had enough money in my account to pay all my bills, and that was as long as I had that, I felt like I was making it. And then when I got to the point where I had to start hiring other DJs because I was getting more work than I could handle, that happened almost immediately as well. So and I made my first 2 hires were Kate and Rachel, and they just bought a billiard hall, and they started this amazing billiard hall on the west side, and Rachel had to she stopped DJing last year, and then this is Kate's last year, which is it's really crazy, but that they made it this long with me, but they've started this incredible business, and I'm incredibly proud of them. Uh, but bringing them on and realizing that I could do it, like I could train them and I could be like, "This is how you do it." And if they did it a different way, like, "Nope, don't do it that way." And then they would listen to me and then they would have success. And then they would experience things that I hadn't experienced yet. And then they would tell me stuff. And so it was like, mostly it was me imparting how I did it to them, which is a way I made it up because I didn't have a ton of training when I worked for the other company. And so I was just sort of making it all up as I went along and it was working. And I think one or that's part of the reasons why it was successful was, like, I didn't have a whole lot of outside influence telling me how to do it, and I was just going off of my instincts, and my instincts are incredible. I have a really good gut, and I'm also really good at learning from my mistakes. So if I do something wrong, I go, "Okay, that was wrong. Why was that wrong? Okay, it was wrong because I did it this, this, and this. The next time this happens, I'm gonna do it this way." And I would learn from my mistakes, and then I would remember, and then I would keep building on that. So, I guess my early days of success were just that I was personally doing like 65, 70 events a year, and I had all these DJs that were out working, and then I attracted all these really, really, really cool people to come work for me, and it just worked, and I remember a lot of sessions with my therapist where I was like, "This is all gonna fall apart at some point, like, this has to fall apart. Like, I don't understand why this is working. Nothing ever for me ever works like this. Like, I've never had anything work like this." And she just kept saying, like, "What if it doesn't? Like, what if it doesn't fall apart? What if it just keeps working?" And I'm like, "Does anybody get that? Like, does anybody just have things that work?" And she's like, "Yes, some people do. They do have things that work." And I'm like, I just had never seen an example of that in my life, at least within my family. No, no, no shakes to my family, but like, I don't know, we had a checkered past. And so it was working, and I really had a lot of anxiety about it disappearing. And then after about year 8, I wanna say I was really still operating in a, "This is gonna fall apart," like, still up until I would almost been in business for a decade. And my therapist is like, "Mary, like, you're almost at a decade. Like, this is working." Like, and at that point, I had a lot of things that had gone wrong. You have complaints or DJs mad at you or, like, but everybody I managed to create a culture where everybody, even if they were mad at me, even if they hated everything about me, they still went and gave their clients an amazing experience. They weren't willing to ruin a wedding for a client because they were mad at me. And I think that showed a bit of, definitely respect for me and the business and understanding that we're in a service position. And do they really wanna be the person responsible for fucking up someone's wedding? No. And so I mean, that didn't stay forever. Over the pandemic, I had some people quit in really shitty ways um, that could have fucked up my business, but at that point, I was a battleship that had been so fortified and iron that nothing could phase me. I really did have a great run there where everybody was doing a great job, and you know, we were able to do things our way in a way that I didn't feel was compromising my ethics or my standards or whatever. It's interesting, like now that, before the pandemic, I had a full-time employee that ran everything and I really had nothing to do with the company. I didn't really know how, once I had Dina running everything and I was sort of being part-time mom, or I guess full-time mom, but part-time working, I knew how good I had it. And I didn't really know how anything ran. So then when Dina had to leave, I didn't know how anything ran. So part of it was a learning curve. Learn how to run a business that didn't operate at all how it used to be. But now that I have the right butts in the right seats and I've got everything is systemized and written down, and I'm not saying it's going to run perfectly forever, but like I am back at a point where I feel like if I were to die, that the business would keep going. And that to me actually is a definition of success, is that I've made something that can keep on going without me if it had to. And in a good way, like in a, like, I mean, I'm at 20 years of business. Like, that's insane. It's crazy. Oh, that brings me to the next question. The next question actually is, most businesses don't make it to 5 years and you're at 20. What's the secret to keeping Toast and Jam alive and thriving? Well, I think the reason why I have made it as far as I have is that I am tenacious as fuck, and, like, I wanna prove to everybody that I can still do it. I'm sure that that's part of it, is just this sort of people pleasery, like, I'll show them as if anyone's sitting around wondering, "Is Mary gonna make it to 20 years?" Like, no one's thinking about me in that way. Uh, I when I just never let anything be the thing that would end me, and I think I've been through a lot of things that would have forced a lot of people to quit. And I think part of the reason, I mean, honestly, I think a real reason why I've kept going is because, with weddings, you are always booking into the future. Like um, we're booking. I mean, I'm recording this in 2025. We're already getting leads for 2027. We probably already have over 200 events booked for 2026 at this point. So, in order for me to shut down this business, I'm going to have to, basically tell if I've got 250 weddings, that's 500 people because there's 2 people in that. I've gotta tell 500 people that I'm gonna fuck them over, and I don't always have I never have, that cash just when I get the deposits, I'm not just, like, sitting there, letting them sit there collecting interest until the wedding's over and then start spending that money. Like, that money is always being spent. So, like, if I were to shut down my business today, there'd be a lot of people that would be expecting hundreds of dollars back, and I wouldn't be able to do that. So, I think part of the reason is, like, this can't like, whenever something shitty would happen, I would be like, "Well, I can't cut bait and leave because I I can't afford to." Like, I'm beholden to these people in the future. And I guess what I could have done is just stopped booking things, and then, that would be the end of it. But I feel like if I were to quit, I'd wanna just walk away and never I'm kind of like and that's how I kind of am in life too. Like, I when something's done, it's dead to me, and I just kinda move on like it never happened. So, I think part of it is just my tenacity and, that I c like, I there's too many people that would get messed over like, people would get fucked over. Not only the DJs, but then not only the clients, but the DJs too, like, taking away income from them, like, that is something that I couldn't, like, live with myself over. And so part of it is just, general, just old guilt and beholdenness to the clients and to the DJs. When I was doing improv, and I may have said this before, but, um, one of the statements about improv that I would always hear is that there is in a scene, in improv, is that there's always a solution that is amenable to all parties. So, there's always a choice that you could be making in a scene where everybody is being taken care of. And you can either make that choice or you can choose violence and, you know, start a fight or, put that person in a bad position. And honestly, in improv, it's like 50, you're only responsible for 50% of the scenes. So, like, you can't force yourself necessarily on other people in that way because the other improviser can always neutralize it if they just have the right response to it. But I do believe that if you go into a situation thinking like, okay, we can all win here, like, let's find a way for us to all win. I'm always kind of thinking about how I can solve a problem where I can win and they can also kinda win too. And I think that that is, I like and I think the other thing is that I oftentimes think is, like, I'm not the only person who's had to deal with this, and they've gotten out of this, so if they can get out of this, I can get out of it too. Eh, I also don't know what else I could be doing, and if this business doesn't work, then what am I gonna do? Get a job at an office somewhere? Like, I don't have any other options, like, this is, like, literally the only thing I can do. So, that's also part of the reason why I had to keep it going. I also believe that I have a very strong brand, and, I think I have a really my branding is incredible, and I have a really good brand, um and I think all of that is like that because it's me. Like, I can't put anything out there that isn't that I wouldn't that I don't feel good about. I would never like, I actually did briefly we hired an SEO company that was writing blog posts for us in order to get, like, SEO on our website, and, like, they were good posts. It's not like what they were writing was bad, but it just wasn't exactly me. Like, it didn't sound like me. It doesn't matter. I'm doing this for SEO, and I'm like, "But they're on my website, and people can see it," and, like, see, like, 6 ways to cut you to keep your budget friendly, and it's like, we're not a budget-friendly option. Like, I don't wanna attract budget brides, so, like, why would I put a blo and it's just, kind of this weird period where I was trying to figure out how to run a business like other people do. And once I realized that, you know, doing what other people do isn't me, and so I had to kinda just do it all the way I wanna do it. And I'm it it kinda goes to the not cutting corners and having to always be getting a little bit better every time. I think that's all part of the atomic habits so to speak, that kind of led towards the success of this company. But also just I've always known who I wanted my client to be. I always know who I wanted to be to my clients. I'm not everything for everybody. I'm not the DJ for everyone. Like, I was at a wedding I was at a WIPA event, which is a wedding industry a professional association. I was talking to somebody who was, like, talking about how they were making a package with it was, like, the venue, the DJ, the caterer, and that might have been it. Maybe photographer, and they were doing, like, a package deal, and there were a lot of they're like, "Oh, yeah, it's doing really well. People really love it." And I'm just like, I could never put Toast and Jam in that position because even though we work at that venue all the time and we probably would be the right client for those people, like, we're just not the right client for everybody. And, I don't want every wedding that comes my way. I want the ones that are the right ones for us. And if I got forced into, like, I guess I'm taking this wedding because, I the other thing is, like, how will I know I have availability too? Like, I mean, I only have, whatever, I've got, like, 20 DJs right now, like, and they don't always wanna work. So, I don't even know if I'd always have availability for those packages, but that's a different logistical situation. Really, what it comes down to is I don't wanna be in a situation where someone is just getting us, and then we get to figure out if we're the right fit. Because that's how I start doing bouquet tosses and, um, you know, cha-cha slides and shit because I'm just not the DJ for everybody. And I don't know how any company could do that either because I mean, actually, I know I see it on the complaints in DJ forums with people complaining about this client wanting this, that, or the other thing, and it's not a thing they do. And I'm like, well, then that's not their fault. It's actually your fault for taking a gig where you didn't clarify if they were doing what you want. But I also don't come from a place of lack, and I always assume there's going to be more business because there always has been for me. And that's because I don't think that most companies operate like I do. We I don't know, I come from customer service and, you know, the customer is not always right. When they're doing something that I've done before that makes things fall apart, like, I will tell them, like, "We can do that thing. Here are this is what's happened when I have done that in the past. And the reason why it didn't work is because of this." Like, when people want things, an Elvis impersonator that's gonna come out during dancing and, dance with everybody. And it's like, well, part of an Elvis impersonator is, like, them singing or talking or, "Hey, thank you very much," or whatever. And so, do they need a microphone for that? Like, are they gonna like, people are dancing. Are they gonna stop dancing and watch the Elvis impersonator? We should probably have that person during dinner so that they are doing it in a place that you know, is entertaining and people can actually see it and everyone will see it because it's during dinner. And if he wants to hang around and dance with people during the dancing, that's fine, but it needs to come in earlier so that you're not and that's is thinking those things through and not being afraid to tell the client, like, either no or that's a bad idea and here's why we should do it differently. I love doing things. I love figuring out how to make things work. Like, we had a client last year that was like I was talking to them, like, 3 weeks before their wedding, and they were like, "Yeah, I really wish we could have my favorite movie is Love Actually, and I would really love my wedding to be like the one where, like, during the recessional, like, a whole band pops out and plays All You Need Is Love." And I'm like, "I wish you would have told me this earlier because I probably could have made that happen." And then I wound up making a couple calls, and we wound up making it happen. It was, like, really fun to, like, make that particular dream come true. Like, I love saying yes to things. I do. I really do love saying yes. And that's one of the things I really love about this job is saying yes and figuring out a way to make these things work. But I also know when to say no. And or at least maybe, and here's what could happen. And then that way, at least that way, if the thing happens and then the thing happens that I said was gonna happen, at least they're always like, you said this was gonna happen and it did. And I'm like, yeah, I wish we didn't have to fuck up the dance set for it. But yeah, I was right. And then sometimes I'm not right. And sometimes, the weird thing they wanted works. And I'm like, knock me over with a feather. Like, I'm glad this worked. I really wanted it to work. You know, so and maybe it worked because I was doing it. I don't know. But in summary, I think it's, staying true to who we are as a brand and not really having an option of quitting. Like, I like to say when I'm training DJs is that, like, failure is not an option. This wedding is going to happen whether you got a tummy ache or not. It's gonna happen whether, if you get to a wedding and your wireless microphones aren't working, you don't say, "I guess we're shouting the toast tonight." Like, no, you're gonna find the closest Guitar Center, you're gonna buy a microphone, and we'll sort out the credit card bill on Monday and figure out what's gonna happen with it. But, like, you can only work for me if you just know the show's gonna go on regardless, and you have to be a part of it. I mean, COVID kinda changed the way we all kind of feel about sickness for better. We also didn't learn a lot of the lessons of COVID that we should have, but that's a different topic. Like, I have done weddings on all of the Dayquil, like, and I'm just a gray hacking mess, but I'm still there. And, the client, I did 3 weddings in between when my mom died and her funeral. And the clients had no idea, and I was grateful for the distraction, but, it's like I went and I slayed. Like, it's not like I can go to any of these weddings and do a bad job, and I'll be like, "Sorry, mom, I'm sad. Sorry, you're" like, there's no option to, like, not make it great. There was a guy, his name is Chris D'Amico, he's a wedding DJ out of New Jersey, and he's an incredible public speaker. I've seen him speak at a bunch of conferences, and he's got a really beautiful singing voice, but he told a story once. His son died very tragically in a boat accident and, had to do a wedding. He's like, "I had to do a wedding not too long afterwards, and I didn't wanna go, and I was just the whole time I was, like, so pissed that had to go do this wedding because all I wanted to do was sit around and wallow in my sorrow." I'm probably getting the story a little bit wrong, but the gist of it was that he was doing a wedding that he really didn't wanna do. Like, he just did not have the heart for it, and he went, and he was a little bit on autopilot, but still did the gig, and, it was still good. Like, he, like, did a great job, and he got, a contact, like, a couple months later that was like, "I was at that wedding, and it was the best night of my life, and I can't believe how great it was." And he was thinking to himself, like, "Wow, that was one of the worst nights of my life, and I still managed to come and give these clients what they wanted, but then also, like, other people could still, like, regardless of how miserable I was, I couldn't turn it off." And that's how I am as well. Like, if I am there, I'm there. Like, I'm not gonna be like, "This is when I'm gonna phone in." Like, I can't phone in anything. I mean, you guys might have different opinions about that on, some of these episodes, but, I try not to phone in. I try to kill every time, and, that's probably part of the reasons why we are still alive and thriving. So that was, that I somehow got through those questions, and there were so many of them. So maybe I'll have to do this again sometime. I hope you guys liked it. If you did like it, sound off in the reviews. I'd love a review. We definitely need those. I think I'm bad at asking for them. If you have a question, you can always send us a voicemail on allaboutmyladybusiness.com, or you can send a message to me through the contact form there, or you can DM me on Instagram at allaboutmyladybusiness. Thanks to everybody who tuned in today. I hope you guys liked it. I had a really fun time just talking to myself. And tune in next week for more business of mine you're all up in. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to All Up in My Lady Business with me, Mary Nisi. We'd love for you to like, review, subscribe, follow us at All Up in My Lady Business on the gram. And if you're a female identifying person and you want to dance, you can follow. I mean, everybody can follow it, but if you want to be a part of the magic at Hot Flash Dance Party, sign up for the mailing list to find out where our next party is going to be. And if you are looking for a DJ in the Chicagoland area or anywhere else, money's the same color everywhere. Fly us out. ToastandJamDJs.com has the best. And listen to my radio show. I have a radio show on Chirp Radio at chirpradio.org. That's Mondays, every Monday from 12 until 3 p.m. CST. Today's episode is produced by Shiraz Dada. Theme song composed and performed by, you guessed it, Shiraz Dada. All right, guys. Peace out.